Hello and welcome back to Game Joy. It's a podcast you can listen to where myself, Jonny, and my partner,
Jamie,
talk about games in a way that we hope makes you feel the opposite of hollow, which, Jamie, I think is full. What do you think the opposite of hollow is?
A wooden stud.
All right, perfect. And what do you think the topic of today's episode is going to be?
Games.
And video or board?
I think maybe video.
Powerpuff Girls or Fairly Odd Parents?
Powder Puff Girls?
Power.
I thought it was powder.
No, Powerpuff. Powder Puff is like the football league for girls.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, unfortunately, that was a bit rough to have on air, but we'll gloss right over that.
You can tell I didn't have a childhood that grew up on TV.
Yeah, and you can tell I did. I'd said one of my teachers was like, he's really poorly behaved, but has a really good vocabulary. And my parents came home and after, asking why I was poorly behaved, they asked me where I got my good vocabulary from, and I answered SpongeBob.
Wow.
Squidward's always saying some big words.
Yeah.
I have been setting up a Retroid Flip 2 recently and going through some ROMs.
Were there big words when you're doing that as well?
Well, other than Retroid Flip and 2, not really. But the SpongeBob ROMs always really tempt me, like for for GameCube and Game Boy Advance and a lot of the older consoles. There were like hella SpongeBob games.
Did you ever play them growing up?
I played one. I think it was like Battle for Bikini Bottom. And I had that on the GameCube, I remember.
People are out there battling for the Bikini Bottom.
Or you know what? That was a funny comment, first of all. I don't want to gloss over that as much as I want to gloss over you not knowing the difference between Powerpuff Girls and Powder Puff Girls. But I remember I traded Mario Kart Double Dash for SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom, and I think that was probably the worst video game decision I've made in my life.
Yeah, that sounds like a tough one.
That's losing a lot of value right there.
That's a toughie.
So anyway, I've been doing that. That's been fun. We could dig into that. We can talk about some of the games you've played since we last recorded, which have been myriad.
True.
And I also finished a stellar point-and-click adventure today. The Excavation of Hobbs Barrow, which I know is on a lot of people's radars who are in the scene, and I think you would like it too. So per our conversation on the Drifter, we could dig into that a little bit. And then also the Steam sale came and went. When this episode's out, it'll be over, I think. But we can talk about some of the games we got from the summer Steam sale and maybe what we'll be playing there. So there's a lot to chat about. Where would you like to start?
It's a lot to chat about. That's what happens when we don't record for 3 weeks.
I purposely didn't mention it. I think it's maybe longer than a month, but
our listeners will know.
Yeah, our dwindling. 2 listeners and dwindling. I would say
dwindling.
But Ryan Marr, my friend who I interviewed on Indie Game Garden, does sometimes like to listen. I know with his work in the background. So Ryan, if you're listening, shout out to you. Thanks for all your supportive comments. This is for you, man.
And if anyone else out there listens and wants to let us know that you listen, you might also be able to get a shout out at some point in time.
Almost guaranteed you'll get a shout out because I can remember your name because it's just 2 people. I'm usually bad with names, but that's usually when I'm meeting a room of people. With 2 people, I got you.
Well, I guess for what to talk about today, I think I always just center myself back to the name of our podcast, which is Game Joy. And I like to think about what in the gaming world and my experience with games has been bringing me joy. And there's been a lot of that. I don't really remember where I was at the last time we recorded an episode, but I think since then, I finished the main game for Outer Wilds, started the DLC. I'm still going through that. I finished Final Fantasy X. I've been working on some endgame content, doing some live streams there. I played What Remains of Edith Finch, and I started the original 2005 release of Shadow of the Colossus, and I'm almost done with that, but not quite. And then I think maybe actually I had done this the last time we recorded, but I don't know if I remember to mention it on the podcast, but outside of recording and streaming and those things, there was a little Hidden Objects game that I got and tried out. It was my first Hidden Objects game. We played it a little bit together and with our roommate Bert, and then I played a little bit of it on my own, and I really liked it.
Yeah, it's a good one, and I think in particular for someone like me who... This is going to be a bit of a digression, but I was reading a group of essays on video games recently, and one of the authors there described like kind of pretentious like guys who are know-it-alls as like dictionary lickers. And for me, like I would say I'm a dictionary licker when it comes to games. So especially for dictionary lickers like me, I feel like a game like that you just kind of buy out of the blue based on, you know, good reviews and like liking the way it looks, and then it being such a joyful little pocket of like social connection and just a good thing to dip in and out of. Like, I don't know, every time I see something like that, I almost want to take the hobby less seriously, because when you do that, it allows you to kind of just open up to all the wonderful possibilities out there. And there's more and more each day.
Certainly. It is. There's a lot out there. And if you get too set in thinking about what you like and don't like, or what type of gamer you are, it means that there might be a lot you're missing out on.
That is true indeed. So let's just hop in with the Hidden Object game, Jam. What's that game called, and what have you been enjoying about it?
I probably don't have too much to say there. It's called Lost and Found Co. It's got just kind of like a cute little story. I actually found myself skipping through some of the narrative a little bit more, and I just found that the actual puzzle aspects were really entertaining. I haven't played any other Hidden Object games, so I don't really know how it compares to those out there, but to me it feels top tier. There are different levels of difficulty in the puzzles, or kind of the maps areas that you can do, and some of them, the hard is hard.
The hard
they
is
aren't
hard.
holding back. You can find secret rooms. You have to interact with things sometimes to discover the hidden object. There are secret missions, so you have your objects that you're supposed to find to finish the level, but then there are also these little side quest things you can do. But it's also just a really cute vibe. There are all these cute little creatures, funny little humanoids, fun noises, where even if you click on things that aren't the thing you're looking for, it makes a little clink or some leaves that rustle. So it's just a somewhat cozy game, but also it really gets your brain firing. And I think I usually actually struggle with pure cozy games because I get too restless. I want my brain to be activated in a certain way.
Yeah.
And I think it's the perfect blend of being cozy, but engaging my brain enough.
Yeah, it's beautifully illustrated too, so colorful, and in an art style that I would say is like unassuming but beautiful. And that's another thing that like I always appreciate when I kind of play games that are off the beaten path, is like, oh, like a game can truly be anything. It doesn't have to be like low poly or beautiful pixel art or like hand drawn. It can be any of those things, all of those things, and a mixture of those things, and completely different, something I couldn't imagine, which is beautiful.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are different styles of hidden object games out there. This is one of those where it really relies on the clutter of items to make it difficult to find what you're looking for. And with that, it's so cool seeing the creativity they put into that, because there are things here and there where you kind of assume that maybe they reused more so the sound effects, but even with the visuals, you might notice similar shapes or similar things. But for the most part, every puzzle and page is pretty unique. They get pretty creative with what they throw in there and what they add in, and the different objects they have in. And when I say it's cluttered, it's cluttered. So there is a lot going on in some of these maps, which I find super fun because it shows how creative they were with it.
Yeah, and just so much detail and care put into each asset. Like pretty much everything has like a unique sound if you click it. And obviously the screen is packed with goodies. So I know just from like a tiny bit of game dev experience how painstaking that must have been. And I think it's so cool when a game can do a magic trick where something that took like hundreds of hours of work can feel easy and like fun and breezy, and like not easy in as far as difficulty even, but just like a flow based experience rather than something that's herky jerky, which sometimes the kind of development process can be. Another thing that I really appreciated about this game is it's like one of the only games I've played recently where like anyone can dip in and out at any time and have fun, you know, and that's kind of the nature of the hidden object genre, I think. But it's so cool to see how like you don't need to start a match, you don't need to like get controllers set up, you don't need to like explain any story. It's just like, oh, you walked in the door, like find an object or two, walk out, it's fine, and you'll still have a good time just like looking at all of the cute cartoons. So I think it's great.
Yeah, because we initially played it, again, like I said, with our roommate, and then we played with your dad, and then I played some on my own, and it really is, dip in, dip out game. Anyone can participate. Anyone popping in can help look for things or be curious about a spot on the map. So it really is a great game to get pulled up and be able to play with others or just to play on your own. Yeah,
definitely. I'll talk about a similar game, actually, that I haven't played with you, but I just got because one of my developer friends, Laga, made it, and it was on sale as part of the Steam Summer event, and that is Stig, which is it's just spelled Stig, and it's like a somewhat Sokoban style puzzle game, which is like box pushing in any capacity. So you've probably played some version of it, whether it's like Pokemon, where you have some of the puzzles where you're like pushing things on ice, or a dedicated Sokoban game. There are a lot out there. But Stig is really cool. I interviewed Laga for Indie Game Garden, and he talked about how his development process is very much about like coming up with a mechanic that seems interesting and doable in scope. And then like every time he gets stuck, he adds something in to like remove that stuck or make it more interesting, right? So it's like, okay, we had a couple levels with this one basic block pushing mechanic. Now let's add in like colors, and then you have to like step on the correct colors in the right order. And it's like, okay, now that we've got those, let's add in like colored blocks where when you push those around, it like changes where it's pushed to that color, right? And then you have to like push blocks in the correct order and step on the colors in the correct order to get through the door. And it just kind of builds and builds and builds like that. And he made it with his partner, Miriam, which I think is so wonderful. He said they have like a really cool connection, and they've grown closer developing games together. And I think it's just a great example of like a colorful, beautiful game that can be made with minimal graphics and just like feel really good and well considered. I think it's like $4 on sale and maybe like $7 normally. So I would highly recommend it if you're just looking for like a coffee break game, a little puzzle game. I think it could slot right into the place where you play like a mini crossword or Wordle or whatever. And for me at least, it feels so good to be engaging with the art made by someone who's like so kind and down to earth and an incredible developer. So yeah, Stig.
And that sounds cool to me as something with was it Retro Pocket 2?
Yeah, Retroid Flip 2.
Retroid Flip 2.
Unfortunately, the handheld naming conventions are really messed up, but like they're sometimes very similar and hard to parse through. But Retroid Pocket is like the same technology as the Retroid Flip, but it's like just like straight across like a PSP, whereas Retroid Flip is like has the clamshell design. Exactly.
Gotcha. Well, that is a sort of game that I feel would be perfect for something like that. It makes me think about how the downside to some of the Steam games and such, and I mean the Steam Deck is incredible. We've both loved ours, but they are bulky
Yeah.
And still large. We have traveled with them. We often do travel with them, but it's not really something that you can just throw in a purse or a bag or a satchel super easily and, pop out on the bus or, kind of carry in your pocket and flip out in the time that you do a crossword puzzle. So it has been really cool seeing you get that up and running, because I've seen you playing Final Fantasy X on it and all these different games. And so the idea of even just playing something like that, in a short moment when you have that on you, sounds pretty much peak.
Yeah, it is great. And the OLED screen is so beautiful. I was booting up some Game Boy Advance games today while I was on my exercise bike, and it looks really good. So I can see why people like those. I can see why people like the actual dual screen handhelds that are coming out, where it's like the Retroid Flip 2, but with like a second screen on the bottom like a DS. But
are there games set up to utilize that?
DS games.
Okay, so they mostly just use it to emulate DS games.
Emulate DS games, but then also like for the Iron Thor and the other devices that are dual screen at this point, each screen is like its own thing. So unlike a DS, they don't have to be like married to the same thing. So you can like be watching YouTube on one and playing a game on the other. It's very over the top, but people like nerding out about that kind of thing.
Incredible multitasking.
Yeah, exactly. For the ADHD gamer brain. But yeah, I've really been enjoying the Retroid Flip 2. I just kind of got it on a whim because someone had it for a good price on Craigslist. And I really, really liked it. So it's a nice in-between, I would say, between like a smaller, lower powered retro handheld emulation device and the Steam Deck. And I've been trying to get games going on Game Native, which is like a compatibility layer to play Steam games on it. And that's been working out pretty well. Like not all games run great. Like unfortunately, games like Stig that are made by like really tiny teams sometimes aren't supported as well, and games that are like super graphically intensive don't run great, but it's really good for like mid-size indies. So for instance, like Spelunky 2 is awesome on there. There are a number of other good games on there, and then of course like the retro like emulation up to PS2 is awesome. So yeah, it's been a good device. I like it.
I'm jealous of it, if that means anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think it might just end up being yours, but we'll see. My like, I always find it funny that my fascination with like new devices, especially in like the video game space, is just like getting them working or getting them set up, and then I'm like, okay, like, do I actually have to play a game now? So it's funny, but I like having that as a hobby. And I hope to continue it in some capacity. I would also love to get into like putting new shells on like Game Boy Advances and stuff, and like
that would be
customizing
fun.
And modding them like that, because I don't even think you need to solder a lot of them. You can just like unscrew stuff and put it in a new shell, and for the easier builds. But yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, you could get some cool looking stuff.
Maybe sometime down the line. I mean, as I get closer and closer to going to law school, like I kind of start to stress about my hobbies and if I'll have time for them, but life is a lifelong endeavor, so there'll be time for it at some point. And we were talking about how even though the world of the video game industry and the world at large can feel bleak a lot of the time, and especially recently, like it's so wonderful to have one another and games, because both of those things make us really happy.
Precisely.
Well, tell me, Jamie, about finishing Final Fantasy X and moving on, because I know that was a big step for you, because you've been really successful on YouTube with your Final Fantasy X content, and because it became your favorite game of all time, by far, you said. So I'd love to hear more about finishing up that experience and what it's like to move on to other things.
Yeah, I feel like it was very impactful, and I'm sure anyone listening who knows and can relate will know. I've connected with a lot of people who just talk about how much this game impacted them and how much it has stayed with them and stayed in their hearts over the course of 25 years since it first released, which is really special. And I feel really grateful to have gotten to still get that experience and to not have had it spoiled, to not really have known anything about it before I jumped into it, and to have gotten to experience it with a blank canvas. And especially, too, I think with an adult perspective, because there are a lot of themes that I think you can read a lot more into and take a lot more from the longer you have lived and experienced out of life. But the ending was sad, and there's a lot I think it leaves you to reflect on with the number of hours you put into the game. And I think maybe more so the thing I've been reflecting on, because I started to get the same feeling today with Shadow of the Colossus when I hit about 5.5 hours of having played the game, was just how unique and special games are in the fact that they are so long sometimes, or at least I guess it's the long games that can be special in this way, because so much of content and consumption today tends to be short form and quick gratification. I think this is something we've talked about before. And I realized today when I hit that 5.5 hour mark in Shadow of the Colossus that when I logged back on and pulled up the game, I started to get the same feeling that I was having when I was playing Final Fantasy X. And it was this feeling that I can only really equate to or describe as feeling like I was returning home in a way. And I think more so it was a feeling, a realization of the piece of myself and my heart that I place into games after a certain point of having been immersed in it. And especially when it's an incredible game that allows you to immerse yourself in it and invest in the characters and the story and just let it kind of consume you in the best way. When you get to come back to it, it's like coming back to a part of yourself. And I think, again, outside of Final Fantasy X just being an absolute masterpiece in story, characters, combat, gameplay, OST, and all of that, is also just when you're with a game for that many hours, it really does become a part of yourself and a part of your life experience. And so that game and experience was so special in its own right. But I think hitting a similar feeling with Shadow Colossus after a certain number of hours actually had me reflecting more on just how getting to play games and interact with a form of media and art that requires an investment of several hours, again, for certain games, I think is a really special thing and lends itself to being able to be a very impactful thing as well.
Yeah, really well said. I was expressing a similar sentiment to you on one of our walks about Mugenics recently, which I kind of had a second error with, and I've almost played like 100 hours of, which is kind of strange to say out loud, but it is really special, I think, how I was reading this book of essays, the same one that had dictionary liquor in it, and one of the essays described video games as like in Ghostbusters, like the ghost containment unit, as far as like they contain code. So there's this like technical piece of it, obviously, that is the game itself, but then they also contain memories. And I think that was really a beautiful way to put it. And a haunting way to put it, if you think about it, where it's like in a game that we're each playing, you know, on our individual screen, especially older games, there's like, you know, in some cases, millions of ghosts, or if in a more positive sense, like millions of memories in there. And each one is, you know, similar because you're looking at the same thing, but slightly different based on one's life context. And like reflections like that are, I think, where the like poignant nature of games writing and the reason why games writing is like so important really comes through for me. So I'm hoping to interview the author that like edited together this compilation and hear his thoughts on that, because I like came to games again like after college and my break from games, because I really enjoyed writing about them, and have since like fluctuated in my like perception of the value on that. But I think like it is a way to kind of bottle those memories and bottle those ghosts in a way and like share them. And I think like alongside a game, that can be a really impactful like 1-2 punch. So yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, certainly. Which, I mean, just talking about memories and games and that experience, I feel like What Remains of Edith Finch is a pretty big one.
Yeah.
Along those lines.
Good transition. You're becoming a real podcaster.
Thank you.
Tell me all about What Remains of Edith Finch. I mean, don't necessarily spoil it, but I'd love to hear like what's kind of, I guess maybe with this game it's strange to describe it that way, but like what's the loop? Like what are you kind of doing, and what's kind of carrying the action through? I think it's mainly narrative, right?
Yes. Narrative, I guess probably kind of visual novel-y, walking simulator.
Yeah.
It also, similar to, for me personally, The Drifter, is not necessarily a genre that I think I would have expected myself to enjoy so much. Or I guess more so, while I haven't played a lot of walking simulator games, I'm aware of the fact that it is difficult to do them well, or the visual novel walking simulator game, because as we've talked about, games as a medium, there has to be something that makes it being a game worth it.
Yeah.
Compared to being a book or an article or a short story or a TV show or a film. There has to be something about the gameplay and the mechanics that make it special in that way. And I think there are a lot of visual novels or walking simulator type things or games similar to What Remains of Edith Finch where the mechanics don't mesh with the story that well, and it leaves the player feeling that disconnectedness between it being a game and what the developers were trying to do, or the memories they were trying to share, the stories they were trying to tell. And I think What Remains of Edith Finch, from my experience of it and what I thought, is such a beautiful example of developers using gameplay to, like, the gameplay didn't just support the story, it actively added to it. The gameplay was part of the story itself. If you took out the gameplay, it would be a completely different story and experience, which I thought was just so unique because it is just a walking simulator game. And the things you're doing, you're just kind of panning with the camera or you're moving stuff around with the joystick. You're not doing combat. You're not solving puzzles. You're seeing and reading and experiencing the story and kind of moving some things around. But just the way they did that and had the player in control of some of those aspects, and it's completely linear. You're not changing the story. You don't have a say in what happens. And I think it really blew me away at how incredible it was with all of those aspects and limitations. I think it was, really incredible.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Is it, I've heard it's really sad.
Yes.
What is the genre outside of that, would you say? Is it kind of eerie, or is it supposed to be more kind of just like memoir-ish from the, well, I guess it's not memoir because it's fiction, but like, is it just supposed to be more, I guess, literary in that sense where it's just a character's story?
Yeah, I don't quite know how to categorize it super well. It's not my strong suit. You could maybe say, I don't know. You could maybe, I think on Steam there is user labeled as mystery, but it's not even really quite a mystery. You're basically hearing about the stories of people's lives, of families' lives. I think from the Steam store description, you're basically learning about this family that this character is from. Yeah. And kind of the stories within that.
And what are the graphics like? You said it's first person, and is it low or poly, or is it like as kind of realistic as you think they had a budget for?
Probably the latter. It's not
Yeah.
lower poly, but it's not super
Yeah.
high def graphics.
I mean, it did come out maybe like 10 years ago, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, sweet.
It's like relatively realistic.
Yeah, well, that you talking about kind of the game needing to be a game and mentioning the Drifter is a good segue into the Excavation of Hobbs Barrow, which is a point-and-click adventure game. First one I've finished since the Crimson Diamond, which is quite a good game. Text Parser Adventure by Julia Minamata. Would recommend it, but that's not what I'm talking about today. What I'm talking about is the Excavation of Hobbs Barrow, and it is a story, very English story. A archaeologist comes in from London to a small town called Bewley, and in Bewley there is a barrow, which is like a burial site, and the archaeologist's father was an archaeologist as well, but he is in a strange coma, and she is continuing his work and trying to excavate all the barrows in England. And it kind of gets stranger and stranger from there, and there's a lot of folk horror elements. And if I say much more about the plot, I think I might spoil something inadvertently. So I'll stop there. But I will say the atmosphere is really what did it for me. So the pixel art's really nice, like probably what you would expect out of like a super high-end adventure game. The game is like 5-6 hours long, and the voice acting's really good, which I liked. But mainly it's like the raininess, the like strangeness of the setting, how you'll find like little things out of place or mysteries that you can't solve yet. And I just thought it was really fun, like getting to know the characters. And, you know, there's a character who will always be like, "There's not here for your lass." And like a lot of the characters are very, like resistant to you, a big city person coming in and like trying to mess things up. But then there's one who's like a drunk, but he also is like your only friend in town. And he's always like saying sorry and messing things up. But he's the only one in the end who like cares for you. And he starts out like being an asshole to you. And so it's like, it's cool how they play with character even within a pretty limited space. But the folk horror is really good. That's like originally why I came to it, is like beautifully illustrated, a lot of cool close-ups, and like kind of a spooky story, which it does turn out to be. But I wasn't thinking that the most poignant moment for me would be, so my story in life outside of the game is like, I was playing it maybe an hour a day for like 5 days straight, maybe 4 days straight. Then I like put it away for a few days, and I just came back to it today, or last night and today. And like I had gotten basically up to the point where there was going to be like a major plot point, but I didn't know it. And so like right when I booted it up again after a little break, it was like plot. And like things were popping off after like days of just kind of walking around the town and like wandering around and doing like classic point and click adventure questing stuff, like solving little puzzles. Like you have to bring the Bakewell tart to this guy so he'll lend you his workers so that you can do this. And yeah, like getting in and just getting like gut punched by the plot immediately was like jarring. And then just after that, there's kind of a denouement where you're standing in a, which means like a break, or like a, like just before the end after the climax.
Okay.
And you stand in the graveyard with this old woman, and she says a line, something like, "The thing I missed most about him," talking about her late husband, "is like, the things that annoyed me when he was alive, like how he would leave his tools all around the house, or like, yeah, that's one example she gave. And it's like raining, and it just like kind of comes out of nowhere. And I just had this moment of being like, holy S, games are like so cool. Cause I was just kind of mindlessly booting it up like to relax at the end of a day. And I just like get in, and it's like, whoa, I'm hit with this moment that like in any media I've consumed recently is like one of the more poignant things, and like was tearing up a little bit. And I was like, damn, it's it's interesting how we incorporate this hobby into our life and the impact that it can have just like moment to moment, where you can just be doing a mechanical thing that's kind of lizard brainy, and then you get to a point where it like just smacks you in the face with story. I thought it was beautiful and really a cool way and a cool reminder how important games can be in like mirroring our emotions and being a like conduit through which we can interact with them, literally, because you're interacting with the game. So it was made by a 3-person team. Really highly recommend it. It's like one of the most popular adventure games, so if you're in the scene at all, you would have heard of it, but it's really good. I can see why it's a classic.
I'm intrigued by it, but mostly it kind of makes me think about, because that's been something that's been on my mind too, is how playing games can be such a beautiful way for us to process things within ourselves, but how that's kind of an interesting thing, because you're usually playing as other characters and you're usually reading stories about other people or other people's stories and emotions and feelings and things. But it makes me think about how it's a lot harder to be kind and accepting of ourselves than it is to be for other people or people we care about or love. And I think and this probably relates to movies, TV, books, anything where you're in someone else's story. But I think almost getting to experience and hear those things for someone or through someone's eyes who isn't ourselves or aren't our own eyes, allows us to almost empathize with them in a way that lets us process the things within ourselves that we weren't giving ourselves the capacity, space, or grace to process.
Yeah, I think games have a way of doing that, particularly because they can be so immersive, and show us something that can kind of keep our mind engaged while still allowing us to feel. And obviously, books, movies, other media do that for a lot of people, but games do it for us, so that's special. Tell me about Outer Wilds. What's that been like?
Outer Wilds was a ton of fun, super cool, really great game. What to say about it? I've just been playing so many different styles of games. I mean, the thing I liked about Outer Wilds was how open it was and how non-linear it was, but also how well they guide you into the pieces of information, and you carve and find your own path for discovering the story and creating the story for yourself. And then the ending was really cool as well, and the puzzle aspects I really loved. It was fun to piece things together and try to figure things out. I did stream that game, so I think it was a bit different of an experience. I could see it being, I can't remember if I've talked about this on the pod before, I could see it being a different experience if you're playing it on your own, because you're out in space and you're flying around space, and that lends itself to a certain level of isolation. But I also really loved getting to share the game with other people, because there are so many people out there who absolutely adore the game and love the game, and it was really cool to get to share my moments of discovery and joy with them as well. But that too, super cool experience, very impactful, such a beautiful and fun game. And I just started the DLC. I've played one day of it, but maybe 4 hours, and that has been so cool too. It's truly such a game about exploration, discovery, curiosity, knowledge, puzzling, piecing things together, the whole shebang.
Yeah, I had a thought, because I know your brain is interested in puzzles and is good at them and likes them. What were your thoughts on the Final Fantasy X like orb puzzles? Did you find them like engaging, or did you find them to be like kind of eat your vegetables before you get to the next story moment?
Maybe the latter. I struggled with those.
I think it's probably because you were thinking too hard about them.
Probably.
Playing them on the retro handheld, I like am usually just like, I don't even know what kind of orb this is, and I'm just like slotting them into different slots, and I'm like, wow, that worked? Really?
Yeah.
It's like, this is a destruction orb. I'm like, how is that different than the flaming orb, the Kaliko orb? Anyway,
I think people, have their thoughts about them. Some people love them. They're not. Some people, it's not their cup of tea.
Sure.
But it's in there.
I just like how it's like kind of just all like story, like kind of straight down the middle, like RPG. Like, you're a hero, you're time traveling, you meet these different people, and they're all hot, and they all have their things, and they're all about the power of friendship. And then like, you gotta move these orbs around to like keep going. And I'm like, what? No one ever explained the orbs. Anyway, I'm excited to keep going, to keep diving in.
I'm excited for you to keep diving into.
Yeah. I guess the only other thing I wanted to mention, and then you can tell me if there's anything else you wanted to talk about, is I've been, I really enjoy playing like multiplayer games with friends. Slay the Spire 2 has been good for a couple of my friends and me in particular. What else? RoboQuest, which is like a first-person shooter roguelike, which doesn't really sound like my thing, but I play it with my friend every week and love that. Another friend was asking if I would want to play games, and we kind of landed on Diablo as like a potential game to play together, because I've heard it's good, and I've never played a Diablo game before. Diablo IV, I've heard like its new DLC is particularly like getting good, and like you should get it now. So I downloaded it, and first, my initial impression was like, damn, I hate how like Blizzard makes you sign up for another thing. Like, once you buy the game, download it, and launch it, it like goes into a separate launcher, which is called Battle.net, which has been their thing for a long time. And it's like, make an account, and then do this, and then do that, and like jump through a few more hoops, which is just a little annoying. It's fine. Get into the game, and I'm like, okay, this looks like worse Baldur's Gate 3. I know it's not very similar, but like similar vibe. It's an action game. It's not like a CRPG, but it's like pretty close, right? So you're clicking around getting loot. And I realized, like, unless the game is super, super special, like a Baldur's Gate 3, or, I've probably mentioned other AAA games I really enjoy. It's like, and I'm not shitting on people who like Diablo and games like that. Like, that's awesome. I'm sure I could get 100 hours into that game and still be enjoying it. But for me, like, I've become so accustomed to either like retro style games or modern indie games that kind of look like retro style games a lot of the time, that like graphical intensity like turns me off in an interesting way, where it's like, there was this cutscene at the beginning of Diablo, and it like looks like a movie, right? It's one of those where it like straight up looks exactly like it's humans, and it's not like a rendered video, with like graphics. And I was just like, man, like, what will I imagine then? Where it's like, then I play, today I booted up as like a test, like the Zelda, the Minish Cap, which is the Game Boy Advance one that actually Capcom made, which is pretty interesting. But it's like lauded for being one of the most beautiful pixel art games ever. And like, it's so, even with something that's like still beautifully rendered, beautifully drawn, but like obviously has to be more abstracted because it's pixel art and on like a handheld from the early 2000s, like there's so much that the mind does with the image that like keeps me more engaged than like clicking around and I can see every like little rumple in my weird necromancer's coat, and like every time he hits something there's like a realistic clang and like a scream as the creature like is being cut down. And like, I got 5 minutes into Diablo and I was like, I can't do this. So I like refunded it and was like, can we play something else? And I think we're gonna end up playing Absalom, which is like really cool 2D like fighter. So I'm excited about that. But anyway, long story short, I maybe really enjoy being able to fill in the gaps a little bit with games, and I was wondering what you thought of that as someone who's kind of played games from across the spectrum.
I mean, I'm with you. I'm with you. This has come up probably a couple of times on some of my streams, because especially with FF10, a lot of people ask why I played the original instead of the remaster, and I didn't even, when I started playing Final Fantasy X, I didn't even know there was a remaster. I had access to it for PS2, the original, and I played it. But I'm really glad I did, because I've been reflecting on that a lot as well, and I've talked about it a lot as well, where I think for me too, I've always had a very vivid imagination, and it doesn't take much for me to paint worlds within my own mind. And I think there is an aspect to a game that doesn't have hyper-realistic graphics that allows me to immerse myself in it more. And I think that is that feeling that I spoke about, of feeling like I'm coming back to myself in a little bit when I get to enter a world that I've put so many hours of filling in the gaps and using my own imagination. And I have to imagine it's similar to maybe why one might prefer to read a book over watch a movie at times, is it just lets your brain engage in a way to paint the picture. And I would 100% agree, at least for myself as well. I like being able to fill in those little details, and it lets me put some of myself into the story, the world, and the characters, to not have it all spelled out, all painted out, graphicked out in front of me.
Yeah.
So I would 100% agree. There is a part of me that wonders if maybe that's just because I haven't played a lot of hyper-realistic games, and it's just my way of justifying that to myself. So I think I'm going to have to try playing something hyper-realistic and see if my impression changes. I think it probably would just be a different experience, and it would be unique and special for different reasons.
Yeah.
But I do also find myself more drawn to less hyper-realistic games.
Maybe when you play Cyberpunk, we'll come back and talk more about that.
I know. I'll
But
be curious.
it's a topic I'm interested in. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's like, maybe it's the like indie hipster part of me that's like, reject that new graphic stuff. But I don't know. Like, there's something about like the quaintness and like just very elegant simplicity of like pixel art, for instance, that just like does it for me more than the like sleek texture Unreal Engine stuff. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and I'll be curious. I mean, I know there's like a remake for Shadow of the Colossus. There is the remaster for Final Fantasy X. I'm planning on playing Final Fantasy VII at some point, and there all of those newer ones. There's supposed to be the new Ocarina of Time coming out this year. So I think, too, there will be some chances for me to play newer versions of games that I've played the originals of. And I'm curious if that will be a good chance to see how I feel about those differences. But that also could be harder because, you know, you have the nostalgia aspect. Well, for me, not really, actually, for a lot of them. But
And we did get a Switch too. That's another special update. So maybe some Switch talk coming up.
I know. Just more games on the horizon.
More games on the horizon. Speaking of games on the horizon, I wanted to talk about, I don't know if you got any summer sale games, but I got a few that I wanted to talk about that I'm like excited to start playing.
Go for it.
Okay. So one is I got The Binding of Isaac Rebirth because it was really cheap, like $165.
Wow.
And that is made obviously by Ed McMillan, same guy who makes Mugenics. And I've never played it, and I know it's a classic, and I'll get 100 hours into that one too if I really try. But maybe I won't. We'll see. The whole Ed McMillan thing, I still can't really parse. Like, the illustrations are kind of ugly, and it makes me uncomfortable, but also totally enthralled. It's kind of a strange experience, one you could only have with games. Another one I got that I think you would really like, actually, is called Metal Garden. And it's like described as kind of a meditative first-person shooter. So you're like walking through like this very sparse, like gray, brutalist, like blocky.
First, can I just go, huh? Continue.
You're walking through this very sparse gray brutalist, like blocky, made of cement environment. And I think it's like kind of a mystery why you're there, and you like check in with a few people every once in a while. But I think a lot of it is just like walking in like a open area. And like maybe there's some combat, but it's I think a lot less focused on the shooting than it is on like the meditative, why am I here? What am I doing aspect? So I think it's almost Shadow of Colossus-y in that way, in that like you're kind of wandering this big open environment and seeing what's up. I haven't played it, but I've heard it's good.
Okay.
I got that. And I also got Stig, which I mentioned, and VVVVV, which is like a really old game.
Hold on, can I go, huh?
We'll call it V. It's a really old game made by Terry Kavanagh, same person that made Dicey Dungeons. And I really like the way Terry talks about games. So I got it. And it's like a platformer with like a new mechanic introduced at each floor. Well, but yada yada. Indie games around 2010, and it's going to be brain teasing, and hopefully we'll stave off dementia for another day. But that's game joy. I feel like we were just talking before dinner too, like just going through some family stuff right now and like feeling a bit like sad about the state of the world, the economy, et cetera, and like just being so happy, not only for the games themselves, but for like the folks who are making indie games in particular and like in the games community, and I'm talking to on Blue Sky. Like it just makes me feel so positive just to play and engage with their art. So yeah, I feel lucky and grateful. I feel lucky and grateful to have talked to you, Jamie. Thanks for being here.
Of course. Thank you for being here as well.
And we started watching Community.
We did. 2 episodes down. Hopefully many more to go.
Anything else you want to close with?
That covered a lot of it. It's been a while, so I think there's a lot that built up, and I think we got through a good chunk of what has been giving us joy lately.
A lot to get off our chests.
Yeah.
Blech.
All that joy going.
Love you.
Love you. Bye.